Question number 5. Grant Robertson.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. What impact would a Fonterra payout of below $4 per kilogramme of milk solids have on the economy and the government's surplus target?
Honourable Bill English.
The precise impact would depend on how the rest of the economy was performing at the time. Given that the current payout forecast is considerably higher than $4, but likely to be revised just before Christmas. Currently, the rest of the economy is growing solidly, and other export commodities such as sheep, meat, beef and aluminium are all performing strongly. This is all supporting more jobs and higher incomes. New Zealand businesses and households have shown themselves resilient in the face of a number of global and domestic challenges, and we expect this to continue. There's no doubt that a sharply lower dairy payout would have a dampening effect both on the economy and on government revenue.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
Is it correct that a payout of $4.25 would take $6 billion out of the New Zealand economy, and a payout of $3.65, as Agri-HQ have forecast, would wipe $7 billion from the New Zealand economy?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, I can't confirm the calculations, but they're probably of something of that order. But these, of course, this has to be seen in context. The dairy industry, well, the dairy industry is 25% of 30% of the economy. So it's actually around 7 to 8% of the whole economy. The rest of the economy is actually going fairly well. Other commodity prices are up. Oil prices are down, which are going to lead to lower fuel prices, most likely. And there's broad-based confidence among consumers and businesses. So in that context, there is no doubt that a drop in the dairy prices will affect government revenue, somewhere in the range the member is talking about, but the New Zealand economy can handle that.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
Is he seriously saying that other parts of the economy will fill a $6 or $7 billion hole created by the drop in dairy prices?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, activity in other parts of the economy will offset some of the impact of a drop in dairy prices. And I'll just give the member an example. The terms of trade sum up our capacity to purchase imports with our exports. And actually, while the dairy price has fallen 50% in the last 12 months or so, the terms of trade have actually fallen around about 5% from a 40-year high. So dairy prices have fallen about 50%. The terms of trade, that's our ability to trade exports for imports, has only dropped by about 5%. So taken in the round, the New Zealand economy can handle what is a pretty sharp drop in dairy prices.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
Is he aware that New Zealand commodity prices overall have declined for 9 consecutive months, and for November were 12.4% below last year's figures, with 10 commodities dropping, not only in dairy but also wool, beef, logs and timber?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, yes, I am aware of that, but as I've just pointed out to the member, when you sum up the drop in the change in prices of our exports and the change in prices of our imports, our terms of trade have only dropped by about 5%. Now, I just can't wait till the Labor Party declares a crisis, because as soon as they declare a crisis, everything starts coming right.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Joanne Hayes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister of Finance, how do dairy exports as a proportion of New Zealand's total exports of goods and services compare with the reliance by other countries on single export categories?
Well,
Honourable
Speaker,
Bill English.
Well, I'll just fill out the picture on this. Dairy exports, well, because the opposition clearly don't understand how diversified our export sector is. Dairy exports are around 24% of the country's total goods and services exports. Non-dairy agricultural exports are 22%, non-agricultural exports 29%, and service exports 24%. So the dairy sector is about a quarter of our exports. By comparison, Australian exports of hard commodities, mainly iron ore and coal, make up 57% of their total exports of goods and services. So we're considerably less reliant on dairy exports than Australia, and the other three quarters of our exports actually aren't doing too badly. We have confidence in the resilience of the New Zealand economy to handle a drop in the price of one of our significant exports.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
With exports flatlining, dairy prices dropping, non-primary manufacturing slumping, housing costs ballooning and the absence of any new ideas to diversify the economy, has he actually just given up trying to lead the economy and is content to try and ride the wave of commodity prices?
Order. I have a order. Point of order.
Mr. Speaker, we aren't very far away from Mr. Robinson, but down here we can't hear that question because over there are a whole lot of nervous backbenchers shouting at the top of their heads.
Order.
And they should be told to restrain themselves.
Order. On this occasion, I will accept the point made by the right honourable member. It was a long-winded question. If the member could shorten it as he repeats it, I'd be grateful.
There's so many things,
but I will ask the member to repeat the question. Be grateful if the back corner to my right would remain a little quieter so it can be heard and we don't have to listen to it for a third time.
Excellent.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
Listen up, Paula. With exports flatlining, dairy prices dropping, non-primary manufacturing slumping, housing costs ballooning and the absence of any new ideas to diversify the economy, has he just given up trying to lead the economy and is prepared to try and ride the wave of commodity prices?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, no. I notice the member just fell short of calling it a crisis. Just fell short. But Mr. Speaker, as I think I've pointed out a number of times, the signals are there now that New Zealand has the opportunity for sustained growth in the economy, not the kind of bleak picture that the member is painting. And as for diversification, just last week I think, the New Zealand Stock Exchange had its next $1 billion listed company, which is Orion, a 95% export company, which is there mainly because this government floated some electricity assets, which gave the market a bit of ballast and gave people the confidence of diversifying their investment and creating a newly listed $1 billion export company.
Question number 6, Mark Mitchell.